And we start with Matthew Berry's Commanders, who lost to Justin Fields' Bears. And Jay, the story of this one from a fantasy perspective is another good performance from Justin Fields after one of the slowest starts of the season out of anybody with expectations in fantasy this season.
Yep, and I think the good thing is that he's been able to provide value without breaking off these absurd long touchdown runs. Again, I mean, he was great on the ground last night, 11 for 57, but that wasn't the heart of his fantasy value. He passed for 4 touchdowns, and he threw for 282 yards through the air. Now, a lot of that was the Washington defense, but he does look, the past 2 weeks, Connor, a lot more comfortable as a passer.
The offense looks better. They're scheming up throws that Justin Fields can make. You're seeing throw with confidence to DJ Moore, which if you have a DJ Moore out there, you should throw with confidence and give him opportunities because he's quietly one of the best wide receivers in all of football. And like you said, Jay, he is supplementing the passing with the running. He's not supplementing the rushing with the passing, which is a much more sustainable route. So, Matthew, I know this isn't really the most exciting thing for you to talk about on this morning, but you have to see some promise now from the Bears offense over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I think Jay hit it on the head, right? Which is the fact that what's so encouraging is 280 passing yards each of the last 2 weeks. We know the rushing is there. We know the rushing can happen at 57 rushing yards last week. But what's exciting about Justin Fields is that it's happening with his arm. We know about the rushing ability in the legs. That's always going to be there. But the fact that it's coming with his arm and it's coming, frankly, earlier in the season than it did last year. Last year wasn't until week 5 that he kicked in. It kicked in last week in week 4 and again in week 5. What's exciting as well is the fact that the Bears defense isn't very good. Like, they're going to have to keep throwing and putting up points. This is going to be an offense that they have to do. We'll see about the running back injuries as well. All 3 of their running backs ended up leaving this game due to injury. They've got 10 days until they have to play again, so we'll obviously track that. But in a scenario where they're a little short-handed in the running game, maybe you can see them even have more designed runs for Justin Fields, which we did see some of last night. But this is the potential that we all saw in Justin Fields last year. You put the passing with the rushing, and you've got Lamar Jackson. You've got Jalen Hurts from a fantasy perspective. That's what's in play here with Justin Fields. So everyone that stuck with him the last couple of weeks, I think you've been rewarded. You're very excited about this. And it's great to see DJ Moore go off. You know, one of the issues with DJ Moore in Carolina was that he just could never get into the end zone. He always got a ton of targets, ton of receptions, ton of yards, but could never get into the end zone. I think, like, DJ Moore is with another touchdown or 2, is going to tie his career high, or bypass his career high for touchdowns. But in fairness to Ron Rivera, how could he have possibly known DJ Moore was any good? Why would he ever scheme up something to stop DJ Moore? In fairness, how could Ron Rivera ever have known that DJ Moore was good? In fairness to him.
In fairness to Ron Rivera, he did really shut down Equanimous St. Brown and Darnell Mooney, who didn't even have a catch, Matthew. DJ Moore right now has 47% of the Bears' receiving yards on the season. For context, Tyreek Hill, pretty good at wide receiver. He has 34% of the Dolphins' receiving yards. So, look, DJ Moore, Connor, he's always been, I think his entire career, a top 20 wide receiver talent in the league. And it's weird that it's being unlocked with Justin Fields, who's not the best passer on earth, but certainly seems like he's getting all the target share, and they have established a connection.
Yeah, and I think one of Moore's best abilities is what he does with the ball in his hands, and the Bears, trying to get Fields comfortable after this slow start to the season, are scheming up manufactured touches to DJ Moore, where he's effective. And you see him, getting looks where if the corner tries to jump the pass and there's no safety over the top, he's gone. He's a big play threat as well. So an awesome game from DJ Moore. And, one more thing to touch on with the Bears that Matthew hinted at, Jay, this backfield was just decimated all in one swing. It felt like Roschon Johnson leaves in the second quarter with a concussion. Khalil Herbert suffers an ankle injury in the third quarter. He did not return to the game. Travis Homer suffers a hamstring injury. He did not return to the game. I mean, when you look at this backfield now, and it could just be a situation where it's like, okay, Fields is going to have to be the runner then, and obviously the receivers and even Cole Kmet are viable, but this backfield was completely decimated in this game.
It was, and look, Khalil Herbert's injury didn't look too serious,
right.
And he kind of
he looked good in the first half.
And he looked fantastic, 10 for 76. Roschon Johnson also very encouraging, but he was cooking in his 3 carries before he got concussed, 3 for 19 yards. Hopefully he is okay for next week as well. Look, I think there's a lot of uncertainty. If these guys cannot go, then it might be the return of Deonta Foreman, but for the time being, I would expect that Khalil Herbert is still the guy in that backfield you want.
Let's jump into the Washington offense and a discussion, a pretty long-winded discussion we had.
No, not yet. Not yet.
What do you got
No.
here?
I still want to talk about this defense for 1 second, Connor.
Hey,
floor
floor is
for 1
yours.
second.
Should we do 10 minutes on Emmanuel Forbes?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah, well, first off, right. So Connor mentions Emmanuel Forbes. A lot of people thought he was a reach. I just want to point out that at the time, we knew Washington wanted to take a corner, that they needed secondary help. And I just want to point out that at the time, Christian Gonzalez was still on the board. And that myself and a lot of other people, this isn't hindsight being 2020, at the moment of the draft, we're like, take Christian Gonzalez. Take Christian Gonzalez. That's who we want, Christian Gonzalez. And they took Emmanuel Forbes, and we were like, what? Did they know Christian Gonzalez was on the board? And I've seen some people on Twitter bring that up, and then other people like, yeah, well, Christian Gonzalez is now out for the year. That doesn't matter. The fact it's not about that. Like, that's a fluke injury. It's about your entire franchise. It's about a process. Like, you can't predict injuries, but you can see very clearly that Christian Gonzalez, passing on Christian Gonzalez for Emmanuel Forbes, was a massive, massive mistake. The Commanders are on pace to give up the most points in a season in NFL history. They've allowed 30 or more points in 4 of 5 games this year. They've given up 6 different plays of 50 yards or more. That's most in the NFL. They've given up at least 4 plays of 20 yards or more in 4 of 5 games this year. The Washington defense, which I recommended because of their schedule, and I apologize to America for this, the Washington defense is averaging -3 fantasy points over their past 3 games. Remember, Ron Rivera is a defensive coach. He was a linebackers coach and a defensive coordinator. He doesn't touch the offense. That's all Eric Bieniemy. The defense is where Ron Rivera has made his name and stakes his reputation. Again, on pace to give up the most points in NFL history. They've got 5 straight #1 picks on defense, first-round picks on this defensive team. But yeah, let's talk about the offense.
Let's talk about Eric Bieniemy's offense. We had a long-winded conversation. I believe it was the top of last week, Matthew, just at how this is an offense that is spreading the wealth. And when you look at last night, Terry McLaurin 4 catches, Jahan Dotson 3 catches, Curtis Samuel 6, Logan Thomas 9. I mean, that's exactly what Sam Howell is doing, where that's great news if you have to stream Logan Thomas or you need a flex play of Curtis Samuel. But is it concerning news if you are routinely relying on Terry McLaurin or Jahan Dotson right now?
Yes. Yes, it's concerning. Terry McLaurin has under 50 receiving yards in 3 of 5 games this year. He's currently got a 17.3% target share. This game was his lowest target share in a game this season at a 10% target share. Now, in fairness, he did get 2 long DPIs, and one was sort of called back, but whatever. He generated, it was a better game than it showed on the box score, but it is insane to me when you think about how much money the Commanders have invested in Terry McLaurin, rightfully so, by the way. Terry got paid, and he should have got paid. He's one of the best pure wide receivers in the NFL. And he's also just an awesome human being and, one of the great faces of a franchise in the league. But I don't mind spreading it around a little bit, but when your offense is challenged, to suddenly be dialing up stuff for Diami Brown, I get they played together at UNC, Howell and Brown, but come on. Byron Pringle is turning targets here? What are we doing? So for fantasy purposes, it's very concerning, and you probably still have to roll out McLaurin as a wide receiver 3, but Dotson is concerning. All the other guys are concerning. To me, the only player on the Commanders offense that you can fully trust moving forward, I think, is Brian Robinson. And obviously this was a disappointing game for Robinson as well. It's one game, but they've normally used him pretty well. They play Atlanta next week. I think they will get back to running the ball with Robinson. I'm still starting Robinson as a top 20 fantasy wide receiver. I think Howell's future Hall of Famer Sam Howell didn't look pretty in the first half, but by the end of the day, he wound up with pretty good fantasy numbers as well. I think he's, a borderline top 12-ish fantasy quarterback. But for me, those are the only 2 guys on the team that you can truly trust and start. Given how bad the tight end position is, Logan Thomas becomes semi-interesting, because obviously a huge game for him last night. He's had at least 40 receiving yards in 3 of the 4 games he's played this year. They are starting to use him more. He is healthy. He has been a productive fantasy tight end in his career. I just don't trust this team to be able to consistently target any one player. I feel like the enemy is doing what he did last year in Kansas City, which is spreading the ball around all over the place, and Howell trying to not lock in on other people, but which is, I guess, in theory good for the Commanders, but bad for us in fantasy. I don't know if you guys disagree with that take, but Robinson, Howell if you need him, Logan Thomas if you need him, and that's pretty much it for right now.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that Sam Howell dropped back 60 times last night and Terry McLaurin saw 5 targets. That just doesn't work. It's too democratic an offense in Washington. I think the problem with Sam Howell, who is just making some ridiculous plays at the moment, Connor. You saw he's bouncing around like he's playing Frogger, an arcade game. I think that with Howell, the problem is that he's just a beat too slow getting rid of the ball. And that's why he's on pace to break the all-time record for sacks by like 25%. And he needs to take that out of his game if he's just going to survive the season, because that Bears pass rush is not very good, and they were still able to get him 5 times.
Yeah, for all the good in this offense from a young quarterback, there's also a timing issue. I think, like you said, Jay, where when he holds the ball, he does get that. He starts bouncing around. We saw him run right up the pocket and into the defensive line. Now he's a strong guy that he can actually break some tackles for a quarterback, and he's built to take hits. He's not built to take 100 sacks this year. Nobody on planet Earth is, not even Josh Allen. So I think that's the big concern with Howell, is just you're looking to get him in rhythm, get him in timing, and protect him from himself. Right now it's fun in fantasy. The game script benefited him. He had a huge night from a fantasy perspective. But for the longevity of the season and the longevity of Washington's offense being viable across the board, it is a little bit of a concern right now.
Yeah, he's going to play Micah Parsons twice still.
Right. You can't be doing that.
Yeah, I think that
Twice,
he needs to fix the way that he plays, and they need to protect him, and they just need to design more quick releases, because at the moment it's just not sustainable health-wise. I think the record for sacks all time is David Carr, 76.
That's right.
And Howell's on pace for 100.
Matthew, you ready to bury this football, put this game to rest, or where are we standing right now?
No, I'm going to stew about this for the next 10 days. I'm angry. I'm angry and upset, and I don't know if you saw the tweet from Magic Johnson last night. You know, one of the owners, where he just said, like, we didn't play with intensity and we came up slow. Like that. If you follow Magic Johnson on Twitter, that's all caps yelling for Magic. Magic's like the most positive, person on earth on Twitter. And so for him to say even something slightly negative about Washington on Twitter just tells you how furious he must be, one of the great competitors in professional sports history, Magic Johnson. So I'm not ready to put it behind me. It's a humiliating loss. It's as a Commanders fan, like, I've seen this movie a lot of times where there's some hope and then all of a sudden there's a national game and then they just get lit up. But I think this is the most humiliating, embarrassing loss in Washington history since the Monday night game against the Eagles, where Michael Vick, I think, had 6 touchdowns and on the opening play, threw a 90-yard. You remember that one? He threw like a 90-yard touchdown pass. I was actually at the stadium. I actually went to that game in person, which was just awful, as you can imagine. But it just, for me, we're only 2-3, but we're not going anywhere. We need to tank for Caleb. I want to I hope we don't win another game. Honestly, I'm dead serious. This team is not going anywhere. I believe there does need to, I never want to. I think there needs to be a change in leadership on the team.
Well, the good thing is that you signed Jacoby Brissett to give you a sort of a raised floor, which means you've got no chance whatsoever at getting Caleb Williams.
Or Drake May.
Howell needs to improve. It's not all on Howell. He needs to improve his release. I agree with you. But also, they need to protect him better. The line is playing poorly as well. So it's kind of a combination there. But again, more 3-step drops, more quick release stuff. Howell has shown me enough that, he'll miss by a mile, but then he'll throw a beautiful dime, 35 yards down the field. So I'm not ready to bail on Sam Howell yet. That loss was on a lot of people, but not on Sam Howell. He had the bad pick, but, and Logan Thomas with a brutal fumble. But honestly, that loss is on the defense and the coaching.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotorWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.